Good morning, everyone. This is Faith at Faith and Books. How are you doing? I'm doing my usual thing where I'm trying to make a quick video before I go in and do my early Sunday morning shopping, so I can get home and make breakfast and get to church. It's just probably not the best thing to do because you're supposed to rest on Sundays, but I have a hard time cramming everything into the weekend because it's hard to get things done during the week. Anyway, I don't have anything new to talk about. I'm still reading The Path Between the Seas by David McCullough. I'm like, I don't know how far I am. I'm more than halfway, between halfway and 3/4. But it's gotten to a much more interesting part. So I'm really absorbed in it now. And I'm still reading Along Came a Dog to the 6-year-old, and I'm still reading My Family and Other Animals by Gerald Durrell. And I'm still working my way through City of God, which my goal is to finish that by the end of the year. But I started thinking about, I think because planning ahead for Victober, and then that made me think of nonfiction November, and then that made me think of the end of year and what I want to finish. And I started thinking about 2023 already. So I thought I would talk about that, just my plans, because it's what's been on my mind this week. And I started writing I even got this out at some point this week, and I started recording what my plans are. This is a little book that I got from an inn years ago, and I didn't know how to use it. And then I started using it as sort of a little, mostly book diary, just writing down ideas. And I think I'm going to switch to doing this instead of doing Goodreads, because I always forget to go to Goodreads and record it, and then I always write a review. I feel like the need to write a review, but it's kind of redundant because I'm already going to talk about it on this channel. And I don't know, Goodreads, I know a lot of people really like Goodreads, but it just doesn't work for me very well. It's just sort of like an extra thing added on, and I want to get off the internet more, even though of course I've got this channel and stuff, but I pulled away from Facebook. I think I'm going to pull away from Goodreads. I think I find it more satisfying to just use this little book diary. So anyway, so I wrote down what I was planning for the rest of the year. So I already gave my my October TBR, which is mostly Victober, which is The Prime Minister by Anthony Trollope, and I'm still working on the screenplay about based on Mary Barton, which is the Victorian Book Club's read. I decided not to do Mayor of Casterbridge. We read that pretty recently, and I'm not a Thomas Hardy fan, even though he writes well, but I just don't really like him. And let's see. And then I'm doing City of God and Down and Out in Paris and London. That's October. In November, I really want to read Walden. That's going to be a Kindle read. Because last November, we actually hiked around Walden Pond. And so I was going to commemorate that by finally reading Walden. I have been meaning to read it for ages and ages. I do think I read excerpts in high school. But, I want to read the whole thing. So I'm going to read that. And November and December for the Palliser series is The Duke's Children. So I don't know if I'm going to try to read that in November or December. I haven't decided yet. And I'm going to keep working on City of God. And then in December, I will have to finish City of God. I have to finish The Duke's Children, or read it completely. And I also want to finish Don Quixote. I started Don Quixote way back in the spring. Was it March? I don't know when it was. Maybe it was in the winter. And I was going along swimmingly. I have read it before, but life just got really chaotic in the spring. I don't know what happened. But I got into, it's 2 volumes. He wrote 1 volume, and then 10 years later he wrote the second volume, and they've been put together into 1 book. And I read the first one, and I started the second one, and I think I was listening to it on the LibriVox app, which started acting up. And then just too many days went by without listening to it, and I sort of forgot about it for a chunk of time. And then when I realized that it had dropped off the radar screen, I just didn't have the energy or the focus to go back to it. But I'm going to finish it in December. because I want to say that I read it in 2022. That was my goal. So it's a lot of finishing things, or maybe just starting The Duke's Children, but finishing Don Quixote and finishing City of God. So that's December. I'm not going to put anything because that's such a busy month anyway. So hopefully I'll be able to do all that. Then in 2023, I've got a lot of things in the pipeline that I'm already thinking about. So, and one of the things is a pretty big thing, but this is unofficial because I haven't even asked him if we can officially announce it. But I think I'm doing a reading challenge with Mark Richardson of the Hornblower series. So, written by C.S. Forster. So this idea started back when I was interviewed for the Desert Island Books that Sean Standfast did. And he suggested it because one of mine was that series, the Hornblower series. And so I asked Mark, and he said, yeah. So we have been chatting a bit. So I don't think he'll mind if I unofficially announce that we're going to have this reading challenge. There's 11 books in the series. And we're going to, I think, we've decided to read them chronologically. We haven't talked about anything further, but I'm imagining it's once a month from January through November. So these, if you're not familiar with Hornblower, they were written from like 1937 to like 1967, something like that, by C.S. Forster. And they're set in the Napoleonic War, and they're about Horatio Hornblower, this young man, and it's basically his life story as he moves up in the British Navy. And there was a BBC series that was pretty good. It was beautifully filmed, just gorgeous, and the acting was all very good. I quibbled with the writing because I think they didn't highlight just how smart he was. Instead, they would just have people be sort of, wow, Hornblower, you're so smart. When they actually dumbed down what he did. So the books, even though that was a nice series, the books are better. They really are better. Now, I haven't read these for like 25 years or more. When I read them, I went through like this 2-year period where I would just reread them. But my memory is really faded, so I don't know. So I'm looking, it's time for me to do a reread of them. So I was really thinking about this in the back of my mind for a few years now. So they're not heavy reading. To me, they're sort of on the same par as, say, the Poldark series, kind of that level of reading. It's sort of set in the same time. It's got maybe... This is very adventure packed though, because he's at war and the things are always changing. He's in a new port, or he has to go home, or he hasn't gotten paid, so he's really impoverished. Or there's like all sorts of things going on. But it's a fun series. I found it really super engrossing. I'm looking forward to revisiting it, especially with Mark, because he is a retired Coast Guard. I don't know what his position was, but he just knows a lot of stuff about anything naval, and so anything sailing, that sort of thing. So I think it'd be fun to reread this all with him. So I'm looking forward to that, and that's a big deal. So, but they're not, like I said, they're not heavy reading. Like trying to read Anthony Trollope, these really thick, wordy, wonderful, but still dense Victorian novels. This is not the same thing. This is popular fiction. You can easily read it in a week. So I don't think it'll be burdensome to do one a month at all. So that's something I'm looking forward to in 2023. In January, I had already decided to reread Middlemarch because I try to read George Eliot, though this is just as of the last couple of years, I try to read or reread George Eliot. So I would be reading that, and then the first book in the Hornblower series. Oh, I even brought a couple of them. I don't have the whole series anymore. I used to have the whole series, but this is Commodore Hornblower. I don't know what happened. I lost 3 of them, so I just bought 3 used ones. Actually, 1 new and 2 used from Thrift Books. Anyway, so in January it would be Middlemarch and then Mr. Midshipman, which is the first one in the series chronologically. And then in February, I really want to read King Lear because it's coming to the Shakespeare Theater in DC. And so that's like one of the major plays by Shakespeare that I've never read or seen. So this is my opportunity. So I'm going to read King Lear, and I'm going to go see it in either February or March. And then, of course, also reading the next book in Hornblower. And then I decided for Lent, I really want to read Ben-Hur, which is a Victorian novel. In fact, what made me think of it was something we were voting on in the Victorian Book Club, and it didn't win. But I think that would be a great Lent reading, because I watch that movie every Easter. So I think it would be neat to read the book in Lent. So if anyone wants to join me for a Lenten read-along, Lent starts February something, 22nd or something. And I think April is the 6th. Easter is April 6th. So yeah, so it would be a February, March, and then just beginning of April read. Yeah. So that's that for February. Here, I'll show you my horrible scrawl. I used to have really nice handwriting, but now it's terrible. In March, I just have the Hornblower and the Hotspur and Ben-Hur. April, Ben-Hur, finish that up. Hopefully, maybe before then, Hornblower and the Crisis. In May, Hornblower and the Atropos. And then I'm hoping with Sean Standfast to host a May is for Magazine reading challenge, which I did 3 years ago. And that's fun. It's where you decide to read magazines. I'm going to read really old Life magazines, I think, this coming May. But yeah, so that's something that's in the works too. May is for Magazine reading challenge. And then June, the next Hornblower is Beat to Quarters, and I'm trying to read the whole series of Swallows and Amazons, and the next one is We Didn't Mean to Go to Sea. I'd like to get 2 in next year, because that's a series of 12, so I need to catch up on that. Then July, Ship of the Line. August, Flying Colors. September, Commodore Hornblower. I think that's one I held out up. October, Lord Hornblower, and November, Admiral Hornblower in the West Indies. And then, in addition to that, I'm going to do the Catechism in a Year with Father Mike Schmidt, which is a podcast, and it's like 20 minutes a day. And he did it for the Bible in the Year, which I did not this year, but last year. This year I'm doing City of God. I always like to have some sort of theological thing going on. So I think I'm going to do Catechism in a Year. And then I know I want to read some other trollop, like maybe Orley Farm, or I'd like to squeeze in a couple of trollops. And I'd also like to read another David McCullough, because I'm trying to read through all of his works too. So yeah, so those are my thoughts about next year. And who knows what else is going to come along, because I am in a Kate Howe's Victorian book. Wait, I forget the name of her book club, but it's a Victorian book club. That's what I call it. And then I also did just join Sean Standfast Faded Pages, so that's also going to be more books in there. So it's already pretty ambitious, and it's already getting filled up. But everything sounds really good. I like the plans. So, all right. Well, I've talked for almost 14 minutes, so I'm going to wish you well and happy reading. Bye-bye.